tributes and memories for the 3 victims of the tragic murders in Nottingham. In a heartbreaking vigil, attended by thousands, the parents of the murdered students comforted each other, trying to find the words that would express the depth of their loss.
I've lost my baby boy, and I can't even comprehend how I'm going to deal with it.
The love that we have out here, I just wish we had it everywhere. So, look after each other.
Alongside Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar, the 3rd victim, primary school caretaker Ian Coates, was also remembered, as CCTV images emerged showing the man accused of carrying out their killing. Paul will take us through the investigation so far, also on News at 10 tonight. The hard and bloody reality on the front line of Ukraine's counter-offensive to take back territory occupied by Russia.
They're using heavy artillery like this to break down Russian infantry positions over the ridge just beyond there. This counter-offensive will not be fast. It will be slow, grinding, and a fight for every single metre.
A future of high interest rates costing homeowners and taxpayers, the grim prediction from the former head of the Bank of England. And the puppets whose stinging humour has sent a shiver down the spine of generations of politicians are back, but not as you've seen them before. Spitting Image takes to the theatre stage.
This is ITV News at 10 with Rageh Omaar.
Good evening. It was the silences that told you just how deeply Nottingham is still a city in shock tonight. Thousands came together to grieve for the victims of yesterday's van and knife rampage, a rampage of murder allegedly carried out by one suspect. 2 university students, Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar, were stabbed to death on the street after a night out. Both were 19, bright, popular, athletic, and with everything to live and look forward to. Ian Coates, a dedicated primary school caretaker, was dragged from his van and killed. Heartbroken tributes at the vigil came from family and friends, united in shock and grief. Perhaps, though, the most emotional address came from the fathers of the 2 murdered young people, who spoke as they tried to comfort each other. 2 parents suddenly brought together through a terrible moment.
They came to support each other and feel the support of an entire city. 2 families whose student children were taken from them in the most shocking way. They were joined at this vigil by thousands of students who stood in silent solidarity, united in horror, shock and sadness at the murder of 2 of their friends. They'd come to remember 19-year-old students Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar, as well as Ian Coates, all murdered in Nottingham early yesterday morning. Holding teddy bears, Barnaby's family had travelled from Somerset, his younger brother clutching his photograph. A first-year history student and a passionate cricketer, his parents have described Barnaby as a beautiful, brilliant, bright young man. His father spoke to the crowd.
I'm lost for words. I've lost my baby boy, and I can't even comprehend how I'm going to deal with it. Well, I know Barney will be super touched by everyone that's here.
Among the huge crowd were university hockey players here to remember their teammate. Grace O'Malley Kumar was a talented player who'd represented England at under-18 level, a medical student described by her family as a truly beautiful and wonderful young lady. 2 fathers standing side by side, her dad spoke of his daughter and of the bond between students here.
Grace was also like Barney. She loved coming up to Nottingham. In fact, we couldn't get her down. The love that we have out here, I just because we had it everywhere. So look after each other.
They were mourning 2 students, but Nottingham is one city, and they'd also come to remember the 3rd victim yesterday. Ian Coates was a caretaker at a local primary school. The head teacher described him today as a much-loved colleague who always went the extra mile for the benefit of our children and will be greatly missed. But the opportunity to come together meant the most to friends of the students who will never return, among them a cricket teammate of Barnaby's.
Just so unfortunate that that had to happen, and they'll be remembered by everyone, both in the hockey and cricket clubs and the university as a whole. I think everyone will remember them.
These are families trying to make sense of a senseless loss. But tonight they can be in no doubt of the love and support they have here. Ben Chapman, News at 10, Nottingham.
As those who knew the victims and the thousands who didn't came together to remember them, the police investigation has continued. Tonight, we've learned more about the man suspected of carrying out the killings. New CCTV images are believed to show the moment he attempted to force his way into a hostel, while dramatic footage obtained by ITV News shows the moments the suspect, still at the wheel of the van, was finally cornered by police.
It's 5:33 a.m. A man strolls down the pavement, and right next to him, an alleged murderer is making his final manoeuvres. The windscreen smashed, the driver edges the van forward, but police at the bottom of the road have him cornered. A second attempt at escape stalls. The driver changes gears and for a moment tries to reverse. But by now there is no backing away from his alleged crimes. An officer runs towards the van with a taser gun, seen here in his hand. He manages to open a door and fire the taser inside. You can see it in the corner, fully discharged. A second officer with a second taser rushes to help, before grabbing the suspect by his arm and wrestling him from the van. They spend the next 11 minutes holding him on the ground as other officers arrive, and eventually the suspect's escorted away by police. Head bowed, his shameful rampage over. Today, police released a more detailed timeline of what had happened before. Officers were called to Ilkeston Road just after 4 a.m, where students Barnaby Webber and Grace Kumar were found stabbed and unresponsive. 4 minutes later, their suspected killer tried to enter a shelter for the vulnerable on Mapley Road. He failed and moved to Magdala Road, killing Ian Coates before stealing his van. He then used it to run over 3 people in the Milton Street area, before finally being stopped and arrested on Bentink Road. This is how close others came to the suspected killer. This is thought to be him trying to get into the shelter for the vulnerable. An arm inside punches him back, and the CCTV shows him leaving to continue his alleged killing, sparing those inside who shut him out.
Open my curtains and on my wake up for work every morning quite early. Just opened it, he just stood there. I just thought he's a member of staff, security, waiting for a taxi. 30 seconds later, I'm back in my room having a wash, and he's hammering on this window trying to get in there. I think the guy actually pushed him out. So, and this guy's disabled.
Amid all the speculation about the suspect who tormented this city, we have just a few facts. Several sources have confirmed to ITV News that he has a history of mental health problems and that he'd originally moved to Britain from West Africa some time ago. Tonight, we still don't know the motive of a man who chose to start a Tuesday morning by ending the lives of 3 others. Paul Brand, News at 10, Nottingham.
And back to Ben in Nottingham. Ben, I mean, even watching it on the television, it was emotional, but it was at times almost unbearable to watch the vigil. What was it like being there?
Well, I should say first that people are still coming here to leave flowers and to look at the flowers this evening. It was an extraordinarily moving hour or so, not least because I think the shock that this city and this student community in particular has felt over the last couple of days was really very obvious. The sense that this could have happened to any one of the students that was standing here earlier. It was moving because the families of Barnaby and Grace were here. It was moving because of the speeches by those two incredibly brave fathers, but it was moving too because of the raw emotion etched onto every single face. People here have so many questions that they don't have the answers to yet. The police investigation continues alongside the grieving process. People are scared, they are confused, but they are also together, and I think that was displayed very obviously earlier today.
Ben in Nottingham, thank you. To Ukraine now, and a series of ferocious battles are now fully underway along much of the war's front line. The long-hatched plan for the Ukrainian counteroffensive, though, is coming up against well-dug-in Russian positions. Both Kyiv and Moscow are claiming to have the advantage. The fighting is fiercest on three fronts. Ukraine claims to have retaken around 35 square miles of territory. In the south, Kyiv says it has regained control of 7 villages, 3 in the west and 4 others further east in the Donetsk region. The area around the city of Bakhmut has also been targeted. Now, Bakhmut was only taken by Russian forces in recent weeks. Ukraine tonight claims to be gaining ground to the north and the south of the city. And this is where our correspondent Emma has been, along with producer Lutfi Abu Aoun and camera operator Mark Nelson, to witness the battle firsthand.
They didn't start this war, but their hard fight is to end it. This is Ukraine's counteroffensive. Heavy weapons for heavy battles. Their fight is hard and complicated by what they're fighting with. This gun is from the 1980s, the ammunition from the 60s. It's unreliable, and the fix is rudimentary. How important is this counteroffensive?
It's very, very important, because we need to liberate the occupied territory of Ukraine, so civilians under Russian occupation can be brought back to Ukraine.
They hide their treasure well, then make its presence felt. They're using heavy artillery like this to break down Russian infantry positions over the ridge just beyond there. This counteroffensive will not be fast. It will be slow, grinding, and a fight for every single metre. ITV News spent 2 days on the front line with Ukrainian forces. Were they all soldiers or volunteers? Different. An army made up of professional soldiers and civilians who've become fighters. Through fields reminiscent of battles past, they showed us the technology that has changed the way of warfare. Drones have been absolutely crucial to the way this war has been waged, and they will be even more important in the counteroffensive. The unit commander tells me the drones allow them to find Russian positions up to 2 miles away, then strike their men and their machinery. They move on foot because vehicles are a target. At the forward command base, the drones and artillery are coordinated. What happens here drives the counteroffensive. This base is very close to the fighting, and missiles fly above them continually. Sergei explains how he receives information on the targets from the drone teams and coordinates the firing units. And where is that place there? Is that...
This is Bakhmut.
Bakhmut, right. On the armoured wall, amid all the technology, someone has hung a Ukrainian prayer for soldiers. They all pray for an end to this war and know their work might hasten that. As we speak, another hit is called for. Here, they are able to see the results of their work, watching the strikes in real time. But Russia has the same power to survey an attack, so elaborate trenches lead to the Western weaponry so crucial to Ukraine's survival. Pieces like this, provided by Poland 7 months ago. They go out to fire, but there's a problem. A Russian drone has been spotted. Breaking cover risks being hit. They pull back below the camouflage and hope. While they wait for safer skies, they explain how they work and sleep in their position for days. The Ukrainians won't say how many soldiers they've lost, but it's thought to be close to 20,000. Every soldier knows the counter-assault is much more dangerous than defence. This gun helps us slowly get back our land, Alexei says, but insists there's still a need for more weaponry and ammunition. When finally the drone seems to be gone, they prepare to break cover once more. They know after firing it can be less than 5 minutes for the Russians to identify their position and hit back. They've lost many colleagues that way and know to take shelter. Later, the commander sums up the mood of his troops.
We are all trying our best, and we want all of this to finish as soon as possible. We are doing everything to achieve it.
The counter-offensive won't end this war, but it will certainly shape the future of it. Emma Murphy, News at 10, Eastern Ukraine.
To a human disaster of horrifying proportions at sea off the coast of Greece now, where scores of migrants were packed onto a fishing vessel, making their way towards Italy from Libya, seeking what they thought would be a safe haven and a new life. Well, it wasn't to be. Their boat capsized and sank near the deepest part of the Mediterranean Sea. Around 100 people have so far been rescued, but it's feared the boat may have been carrying many hundreds more. Tonight, at least 79 people are known to have died, and Romilly is in Athens. Romilly, there are, I suppose, real fears that with those numbers that I've just stated, more lives could be lost in the coming hours.
Yes, Rageh, that's right. This is a tragedy that's growing by the hour here in Greece. It is thought that there were hundreds of people packed onto this boat, with some reports saying as many as 500 people could have been on board. We know that only 100 survivors have been picked up and 79 bodies retrieved from the water. And as you can see from these pictures, the fishing vessel they were on was absolutely packed, with people covering every inch of the deck. And what survivors are saying is that it was men who were on deck, but women and children who were below in the hold, from where you have to imagine it was even harder to survive when the boat sank in the deepest part of the Mediterranean. If we try and unpick what happened here, it seems that the boat was spotted in international waters. It was actually trailed by the Greek Coast Guard, but those on board didn't want assistance. They said that they were trying to get to Italy, and then in the early hours of the morning and in the dark, it seems that the boat's engines failed and it capsized. And despite many boats being in the area and a huge search and rescue operation mounted, the fear is that the majority of people on board didn't survive. The Greek president has visited the area. She has declared 3 days of national mourning, but of course the mourning will extend way beyond these shores to the countries where these migrants came from, where relatives will be desperately hoping for news.
Romilly in Athens, thank you. Coming up, ITV bosses face tough questions over Philip Schofield's affair with a junior colleague. And
tonight, a global exclusive, my new gig, treading the boards in the West End in Spitting Image the musical.
Boris, what have I told you? News at 10 is part of the fake news media. Everybody says it.
more from them and the rest of the day's news after the break. Welcome back. And if the former governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, is right, to some pretty unwelcome economic news tonight. He's told Robert that borrowers can expect to be paying higher interest rates for the foreseeable future. And this will affect everyone, from individual mortgage payers to the government trying to service its huge debt. This is what Mr. Carney had to say.
I think one of the things that governments in the UK and Canada elsewhere have to get used to now is that they are going to be paying higher rates of interest for their debt for the foreseeable future, not just measured in 12 months, 24 months, but actually the big tectonic shifts in the global economy mean that we are likely to have higher, longer-term interest rates for a period.
So if government's going to have to pay more for years and years and years, so are all of we.
That's correct, and that's a good working assumption.
And Robert joins us now from his studio. Robert, I mean, it's pretty sobering news, as you say, for all of us, but it's also for the government, isn't it, ahead of an election next year?
No, that's certainly right. I mean, it was only a few months ago that ministers, Central Bank, Bank of England, were hoping that inflation could be squeezed out of the system fairly fast and that this surge in interest rates could be reversed again very fast. Now, for a variety of both UK reasons and global reasons, that now looks, as Mark Carney said to me, and you can see the full interview on my show in just about 20 minutes, he said that it's extremely unlikely we are going to get back to the kind of interest rates that we got used to, before this recent surge in inflation. So we're talking about, mortgage rates, and let's just be clear where we are tonight. I mean, the average mortgage rate has gone up today to 5.9% for a 2-year deal. Only a year ago, it was 3.25%, and of course, we all know before that, rates were being offered at 1%. So this is, in terms of a squeeze on people's incomes, this is really dramatic and very serious. Between now and the end of the year, some 700,000 people will come off those fixed-rate deals, and some of them will be paying hundreds and hundreds of pounds out in additional interest every single month. So I've also got Chris Philp, a senior minister in the government, on the show, and I asked him what the government was proposing to do to help people who will be struggling not only to pay their mortgages but to pay other bills, and all he would do is direct me back to the help that the government gave last year. But there is nothing at the moment planned. And all that the government will say, all he says, is it's all about squeezing inflation. So yes, very difficult times for us. And obviously there's this Boris Johnson headache, which I'm talking about on my show. But probably the worst news for Rishi Sunak politically is indeed this rise in interest rates, which could indeed lead to a recession next year.
All right, Robert, thank you very much indeed. Boris Johnson's perhaps most ardent supporter, Nadine Dorries, tonight said she will hold up the whole process of her resignation until she gets answers about why her nomination for a peerage was not approved. She says it remains her full intention to resign as an MP, but she insists she is not budging until she is told why her name was not on Mr. Johnson's resignation honours list. The government cannot call a by-election until she goes through the formal resignation process. Now, the bosses of ITV got a grilling from MPs today when they appeared before a Commons committee. They were closely questioned about the exit of presenter Philip Schofield from the This Morning programme and whether they had known about his affair. They denied allegations of a toxic culture behind the scenes of the programme.
Today we're joined by Dame Carolyn McCall, ITV's chief executive, alongside Kevin...
Grave looks on the faces of ITV's bosses as they were introduced to MPs. Philip Schofield's affair with a younger member of staff raises serious issues for them, they said, and the chief executive began with the reason the relationship was wrong.
The imbalance of power, the imbalance of dynamics in that relationship makes it deeply inappropriate.
Managers tried to get to the truth about rumours of Schofield's affair, they said, but both the men involved denied it. The bosses came to Parliament with records of their inquiries and legal counsel.
No one came forward with any evidence. Straightforward, categorical denials each time it was asked. And conversations continued also in May this year, right up to the day when Philip finally admitted that he'd been lying to us.
That account was questioned when one MP quoted the tweeted testimony of a previous This Morning presenter.
Eamon Holmes said in the tweet that Schofield has finally been caught out, but he's not the only guilty party. 4 high members of IT management knew the sort of man he was. You must have been surprised to receive that.
We didn't receive it. It was on Twitter.
Well, to see it.
Don't look at Twitter.
To see it.
I think it's actually defamatory. Never mind anything else. But of course we wouldn't say that because it would just inflame the situation.
The management of staff and stars across the network came under scrutiny this morning. Dame Carolyn said that duty of care requirements of the companies that have produced some of ITV's most popular shows have increased significantly. But another MP said that members of staff had been in contact with him, describing the channel's bullying culture and toxic environment.
Deeply distressing, in my view, to hear.
Dozens of them.
Well, it is not something I recognise that characterises the whole culture at all. We've told you that we have had 5 complaints in 5 years on daytime, and we've taken all of them seriously, and only 2 of them were about bullying.
An independent review of how ITV investigated the This Morning affair goes on. In the meantime, the chief executive said they are helping the younger man involved, while they are very concerned for Philip Schofield's welfare. Geraint Vincent, News at 10.
Now, finally, people of a certain age will remember that in the 1980s and 90s, the rich, powerful and famous dreaded when the satirical show Spitting Image appeared on the nation's TV screens. The puppets and their voices were caustic caricatures of the great and the good, and the scripts were meticulously updated even during recording in order to reflect the latest headlines. Well, now the show's making a comeback, this time live, but on the West End stage. Its original creator, Roger Law, told Nina how it will be just as cutting edge as before.
And here they all are.
I am backstage with the master of puppets.
I see she's still working, it's very good. He's got better over the years to do, actually.
Why is that?
Well, he sort of got more like the original caricature, only older.
Behold! The Tory party is gathering!
His Spitting Image creations have come a long way.
Please, sir.
Thank you. Geoffrey, this is a French one.
4 decades after the TV show was first recorded, the puppets have made it into the West End.
Liz Truss is a lettuce.
Liz Truss is drawn as lettuce.
Yes.
Okay.
And the caricaturist Roger Law, who first dreamed them up on paper, says keeping up with fast-changing events is every bit as frenetic as it was on TV.
Things change. People resign. Witness last week. So you have to change the script. Originally, they weren't going to do that, because I said it's a complete bloody nightmare. I mean, we used to do it on the television show, and on some shows, the first half was going out as you were editing the second half. You really need that sort of adrenaline, you know. But I didn't expect them to do it on the show, this particular theatre show, but they do. They're mad.
So brilliant and inspiring.
Some things have changed. He concedes it's easier to offend now, thanks to social media.
Greta Thunberg.
See, that's a really nice drawing. There was a hell of a lot of, how can you do this to a young girl? This is absolutely outrageous. And then she came on and said, I love my puppet. And that was the end of it.
The stage show has 15 puppeteers and a multitude of quick changes and voiceover artists.
These are my 2 favourites to do. I mean, Boris, you know, even the puppet seems to capture the sad-eyed tragedy of the total loser. And these guys, I mean, you have to... The puppeteers are what really makes this work, because it's one thing to do the voice, it's one thing to have an amazing caricature. But when you think about Donald Trump, I gotta tell you, Nina, you're part of the fake news media. You're a bad dude.
Let's do this, team.
Oh, God damn it! The Spitting Image dudes are clearly enjoying their shot at West End glory. Nina Nanar, News at 10.
Absolutely unforgiving. Spitting Image. And that's it for tonight. From the team and from me, thank you for watching. Good night.